And we're recording. And welcome. We're here on another Wondrous Wednesday. I'm Jerry Sr., and this is Jerry Jr.
Good evening.
And decided to come together and talk about recent events surrounding the election, really, because it's probably the biggest event this past couple of weeks, right?
I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't really want to address it, but there's been a lot of reactions, and that's
Yes.
natural.
Yes.
Some more warranted some less warranted than others.
A lot
Um,
of them less warranted, not warranted. So
yeah, but
it's very
my
strong.
my 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 main thing is in the context of comic books, right? One of our favorite writers is Mark Waid. If
Yes.
you're not familiar with Mark Waid, Uh, he's worked on he's been working on comic books since the 80s. He's worked on the Flash, Captain America. He was a big part of the 52 Infinite Crisis miniseries.
Yeah, Batman,
New
Superman,
52,
World's Finest.
yeah, Kingdom
Yeah,
Come,
and,
all that good
and the
stuff.
current absolute power right now. So yeah, he's definitely comic book legend, right?
Yeah.
So how they say it's sometimes it's not good to meet your heroes, right? Uh,
So I'm gonna read a post he put on Twitter. Although I hear it looks like it's on
yeah, it's
Sky Social, which
Blue
is
Sky. Yeah, it's a
Blue
whole
Sky.
other app. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like another Twitter, but it's just another Twitter. But so, and I quote, even by some miracle, well, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and
yeah. Share the screen. Yeah,
yeah. And the only reason I'm making a big deal out of this is because when you write a story and it's you, for me, I write stories. When I write a story, I'm writing about things that I believe in, which I think any writer does. Or just the stories we tell are a reflection of what we value, right? I'm a firm believer in that. And Mark Waid or Kingdom Come is a story that has had a deep effect on me and the way I view storytelling.
oh yeah, it's legendary. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
So to see this coming from Mr. Wade was very disappointing, and I'll just share it. This is straight from Reddit. So in response to recent events, he says, even if by some miracle this turns around, I don't believe in the basic goodness of my fellow Americans anymore. And without this, I cannot write superheroes. There's no point. When you see a decline in the quality of my work soon, you'll be able to trace it back to this night.
yeah, and
So my first reaction, so I don't, this was a week ago, and I remember hearing about it, and my initial, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. My initial reaction to this was, I mean,
well, well,
I'm not gonna say anything, man.
my initial
But
reaction was BS, and this is why, because it's nonsense, right? Because
no,
in my mind, I'm reading this and I'm going, okay, so because your guy didn't get into office, you just give up on your country, you give up on your fans, right? You get it's like, not to mention what you're saying, it's like you're denigrating a lot of your fans that look up to you, right? Who did vote for Donald Trump, right? It's like at some point you gotta use a bit of tact, right? And say, you know what, I don't like this guy or I don't agree with his politics, but I would expect if you really have the convictions that you claim you have, that rather than saying I just can't write superheroes, you would be writing more superheroes. And you would go in hard on that because of what the quintessential iconic heroes represent. They represent courage and perseverance in the midst of trials and tribulations, right? They
Right. And my
overcome
point,
obstacles. And you're saying, well, I didn't win this time, so I'm just going to give up. I'm going to take my ball and go home.
but
That's
that's
the very opposite of what you've been writing about all these years.
right. But that's my point. Is that I don't. It when you say this, it makes me think that you never actually
You
believed
don't
in
even
the
believe
goodness
what
of
you're
your fellow
writing,
Americans
right?
to begin with, because
Right.
you wouldn't have said that. And it's this defeatist mentality that really gets on my nerves, right? Because a lot of people, I remember the first time this happened, right, back in 2016, and this is coming from somebody who didn't vote for. I didn't vote for. I went out and voted, but I didn't vote for either candidate. And I went to work. I went to work the next day, and um, I was a school teacher at the time. I was a school teacher, and everybody in the office was all doom and gloom, and they were all like depressed and whatnot. And I'm sitting there going, "You guys okay? We got like work to do, And the my supervisor at the time was like, "Can you just let us grieve and da 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 da?" And I'm like, I didn't even like the person I voted for didn't win, and you don't see me throwing a pity party.
Right, exactly.
Like we have shit. It's like, what kind of message are like I said, we were teachers. Like, what kind of message are you sending to the children? Where it's like you just it's like, oh, things didn't go your way, so you have to be act like a loser and
And pout
feel
and
sorry for
have a,
yourself.
have a pity party and
Like it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah, and
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's a like look, you can say, hey, there's a decline in the quality of American, you know, ideals, or I don't know, or it's like you can comment about current day values, right? You can say there's been a decline in our values. We're not upholding, these truths like we used to. That's fair critic. You can criticize American culture, right? But then to say that somehow there's just no point in writing heroes, there's no point in doing the best work I can because there's a guy in office that I don't like. It's like it's kind of wild, right? The rationale ultimately makes no sense. I'm gonna do crappier work because I don't like someone who's in office.
yeah.
Like it makes
And, and and
it
here's
defies reason and logic.
here's how I could tell he's privileged, right? Because and I don't like to throw that. I've never called somebody privileged in my life, right? But when I was a month ago, I was on my way to work, and this homeless woman, she was laying on the street, and she like tried to stab me with a knife, like on the way to work, and it freaked me out, obviously, right? And I got to work, I didn't say anything, and then I find out that one of my coworkers got punched in the face by a homeless guy, and he lives right around the corner from my job.
Wow.
And you know, I didn't make it about me. I said, "Hey, man," or my supervisor was like, "Hey, let's make sure he gets home." I was like, "Yeah." So me and our truck driver, we went, and he went to go drop him off. And before he took off, I prayed for him, and he went on his way.
Yeah.
I didn't, and then even after that day, right? I still go out of my way to, you know, give money to homeless people or feed the homeless. Like literally last week, right? You know, some guy was asking, he's like, "Hey, uh, I want to get Carlos Jr." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I just we just walked to Carlos Jr., some random homeless dude, and I didn't care because I'm not gonna hold it against him because one homeless person treated me badly. I'm not gonna
Right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
do you know
exactly.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like if I who's someone who was attacked, right? I mean, I'm just a regular dude. I'm going to work, and I'm not like I consider myself an average Joe, but in like you know, if I could have basic empathy in spite of being attacked, right? What's your excuse? And it's people with his mentality, right? And it's goes. I don't mean to. I'm just. I'm no.
Yeah,
I'm angry.
you
I'm
don't want to go in, but it's like, yeah, it just seems kind of wacky.
because
That's all.
it sounds dishonest at best and privileged at worst.
Yeah, not just dishonest, but disingenuous. As in,
Yeah.
it's like, look, guy, you've been at this for a few decades, right? And now all of a sudden, I mean, he was president before. Then we had two terms of Bush, right? Um, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, you didn't give up when Bush won, right? Twice, right?
Where's the thing? I don't know who.
Like,
I
you've
don't.
been on this planet long enough where you've lived through several. Because he's probably around my age, right? I mean, you've lived through Reagan and the first Bush, and then it's the Bush Jr.
I mean, yeah,
twice, and
he's older than
Clinton,
you. He's
and
60. He's
yeah,
62.
yeah. So you've lived through all this stuff, but all of a sudden Donald Trump is a problem because he won, and it's like, look, I understand every election they say, hey, this is the election,
But
and
it's not
after
always
this,
true.
it's gonna be, and it's like,
It's
well,
almost never true.
this, yeah, I mean, well, it is never true, right? It's
But it's
it's
like
never reality. Sure, the economy might get worse. It did get worse, um, you know. But guess what? Now that Trump won, the economy is probably still going to get worse, right? Because there's only so much he can actually do, right? Because there's things that are at work that are beyond his reach and control. Especially when you're talking about the World Economic Forum and the Federal Reserve and things like that. So, and that's a whole other conversation. But and that's kind of what I'm saying. Part of like where that sentiment comes from is the propaganda that's been put out there for so many years now. Where now, like for decades, I remember growing up and seeing Don King and Donald Trump shaking hands, hugging it up in Vegas, because he was a big investor in Vegas and the boxing arena,
oh
arena,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
all that
yeah.
kind of promotion. Don King was this big promoter, a black man, right? Donald Trump and him were buddies. They hung out. They did business together. Him and a lot of other guys who weren't necessarily white, right? And so it never even dawned on me that this rich white man is racist, right? It never occurred to anybody else, right? No one ever accused him of being a racist. In all those years and decades he was in business, he had his show, The Apprentice, all that kind of stuff, right? He's fired white people, he's fired black people, he's hired black people and hired white people, right? Women, etc. He's done all these things, right? Um, but as soon as he runs for president, all of a sudden he's the leader of the Ku Klux Klan. you know, he never denounces racism, even though it's on the record, it's recorded. There's
Like
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 literally
20
dozens of
times.
video where he denounced David Duke and the KKK and the
Yeah,
Proud
I've
Boys.
seen all that
He's
stuff.
done it over and over again, and it's like it's completely ignored. And it's like people want to believe the worst, right? Because it's, I don't know, it's easier. It plays into their emotions. It justifies their vote for the other side. There's a lot of like nuance in there, right? But it's like you're you know, especially when I see older people, my age and up, that buy into the nonsense, right? I expect young people to kind of play into it because they're young and they're still learning, right? The world is still new, right?
Yeah.
But to see older people be so thoroughly deceived by this foolishness to the point where they're putting out statements like that, right? Um, and in contra, like in comparison, there's Rachel Zegler, right? She's the girl that played Snow White recently in a recent remake,
Oh,
you know, and
yes,
and
yes. I
she's
saw this earlier
and
today.
listen,
Yeah.
she's a young lady. I'm not sure how old, but she's probably what, late 20s, early 30s at the most, right? So, And here she is, she's disappointed, of course, and she's I don't even know what app this was. I think it was some other, maybe it was Blue Sky also. I don't know, but she's putting out these posts and she's talking about how it's terrible and Donald Trump and this and that and the country. We got to keep fighting and all this kind of and hold these politicians accountable. But she finishes off right, and this is the last one. Like she did about 4 or 5 of these, right? But this is the last one. Um, and I'll kind of zoom in. But she ends up saying, "I will love through these 4 years as best I can," right? Referencing Trump's administration. Then she ends it with "F Donald Trump." Now imagine the mental and emotional gymnastics you have to go through to rant across 4 different posts or whatever, right? Talking about love and talking about all these things, then end it with "I will love through these years," and then you say "F your enemy." Like then where's the love, right? The Bible tells us to love our enemies and pray for them, right? So you're saying "F Donald Trump," and he's literally done nothing to you, right? Right? All
What
he
what
did
is
was
what
run
is
for president
what
and win.
is what do they say? The mercy of the wicked is cruel.
Oh, you understand, right? And so it's like it's like peak. I called it peak delusion. It's peak delusion, right? But it's like I look at this and I go, well, she's a young lady. She's in her emotions, whatever. You understand? Like I'm not giving her a pass, right? Because she's an adult. But at the same time, it's kind of like I'm not shocked at the hypocrisy here, right?
Yeah.
But to see someone like a Mark Waid, come out and say the things he said, he's made other
What
comments as well, leading up to this final statement. But
I mean, I really don't care about what
it's
else he said. I don't really
well, I'm
pay
just
attention
saying,
to
like
his.
it's among other comments prior, but this was kind of like just tops it off. And I just feel like, okay, guy. I mean, you can feel what you want to feel, but we're getting to a place where it's just kind of silly, right? Because the man hasn't done anything yet. Like it's like at least wait till he does something that
What?
does fit into that narrative, right? Like if he
Sure,
really is a
but
dictator or a tyrant or a racist, let him actually do something in reality. Then you can go see. There you go,
well,
right?
it's not. It's not only
You're
just
right.
that though, but it's like as a and this might sound kind of nerdy, but as a comic book writer, it's like you don't believe in your own ideas, or at least you're
Yeah.
considered
Well,
super
it just
weak.
this statement
And
proves it.
it's like
It
you
does.
haven't been through anything. Like you
Well, I wouldn't say he hasn't been through anything, but I would say that it's almost like this strange mentality, right? Cognitive dissonance, right, where you believe two opposing things at the same time, right? And you think they're look. The man's in his 60s. He's been through things, right?
I get that, but
The problem is there's a dissociation between the reality of what he's been through and the politics that he chooses to accept. Do you understand? And part of that is the fact that he clearly buys into the fake propaganda about Donald Trump. And that's what I'm saying. It's like if you were to have a conversation with him, like you meet at the bar, you buy each other a drink, whatever, you have a conversation, it's gonna be shits and giggles. You're gonna be like you're gonna say, this guy is great, he's smart, he's funny, he's got all these great stories about how he's been through these things and he's being jobless or something or low
yeah.
income and then rising to the top and all the stories he's written, the people he's worked with, places he's been, right? And you're going to see that this is a person that's lived a life. But at the same time, when you start getting into politics, you're going to go, huh? Right? Like, and it's not about like the fact that he doesn't support Trump or he does support Harris or whatever. It's the reasons why. You understand? It's like I have a friend, a very close friend, and he does not like Donald Trump. And one day, this was way back when Trump was president, 45, right?
Mm.
And he made a lot of comments, like we were just having a conversation, and he's like, "Man, he's just such a liar," and this and this. And I go, "Okay, well, why do you say that?" And he's like, "Well, because he's racist and he's this," and he said, and I said, "Okay, well, he didn't say that." And he's like, yeah, he did. And I was like, no, he didn't. And so I shared with him a bunch of links of all the falsehoods, right, at that time, right. And I said, see, I said, he didn't say that. They took it out of context. They took this out of context. They mischaracterized this. This is what he said. And he saw it for himself in real time, right? 4K. And yet and still, he's like, but I just don't like him. I said, that's fine. And I told him, I said, I'm not trying to get you to like him. I said, I don't know the man. I'm not trying to defend him in the sense of like he's my buddy or something, right? I don't know him. I'll probably never meet
No,
him.
I mean if you're gonna
But
judge someone's character, make sure it's based off of the truth.
based off
I
what's
I,
true,
I get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I told him. I said, if you're gonna hate the man, at least hate him for the right reasons. Hate him for reasons that are actually true and accurate, versus hating him based on a bunch of lies. But unfortunately, that's a reflection. He's a reflection of a huge portion of the voting population right now, and that is a lot of people don't like him simply because of the fake and ridiculous propaganda that's even right now still put out there by mainstream media, and people are just they're drinking the Kool-Aid, as it were. And unfortunately, I really do believe Mark Waid is among those people. Because if you were to ask him, and it'd be interesting if someone finally does, why do you, why are you against, Donald Trump? Is he even going to have an actual accurate, perspective, or is it going to be based on a bunch of propaganda and lies, right? It's like, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's unfortunate, and sometimes it's even frustrating, right? Because it's like you can't even really have a conversation, let alone a debate about it, because you're debating truth and rationality. They're debating emotions and lies, right? You can't win a debate against lies and emotions. You're not. It's a waste of energy. You're just going to be frustrated because you're never going to convince them until they see and experience it for themselves, and they take that hard pill, right? And they're humbled in some way, that their ego gets out of the way, you know. And until then, it's like you just gotta be patient. And like with my friend, we're still friends, and I talk to him and I tell him, when he says something about certain issues or whatever, you know I, I I just go, that's not true. And then I show him the truth, and he goes, oh, well, I didn't know that. And then we have a conversation, right? And that's it. That's all you can do, right? you
Yeah.
know and it's like, and hopefully maybe that'll happen with Mr. Wade. I hope so. Because it's
Yeah.
it's
I
like,
just
putting out this stuff. It's like sometimes I think people need to kind of bite their tongues for a bit,
yeah.
before you start posting like their emotions. Stop
Well,
posting your emotions.
I think I mean, and I'm obviously I was guilty of that this like literally a minute ago, but the thing is, I mean, it's true, it's true. It's just social media feeds into your ego, right? And that's kind
It
of why
does.
I don't.
It does.
That's
Yeah.
why I really don't. I don't. I'm not really on social media all that much, and I don't watch. Like I'm not on TikTok or Twitter a whole lot unless it's like I'm sharing music or something because it's like I don't I don't care I don't care enough about other people's opinion on my opinion, if that makes any sense. But also, it's like it's one of those things where you know it's kind of like what you say. You gotta wait and see when it comes to certain things. And also, I mean, I don't know. I'm mainly just angry because, like I said, from the perspective of a comic book writer, you write these stories you know, Kingdom Come. The whole point, like the whole existence of Kingdom Come, is because these two comic book dudes didn't like the direction of comic books, and to show, they wanted to show something better, right?
Hmm.
It's like that was in the midst of the edgy '90s and stuff like that, the age of the anti-hero, and they put out this the comic book because they believed that heroes could should be better, and we have to live those ideas. You know, we have to live those ideas. In in real life, right?
Yeah, right.
And I just I think that uh, I mean just having such a defeatist mentality just isn't. I don't know. It's just not the right. It's just not the right
Well,
thing.
yeah, it seems contradictory.
Yeah,
That's all. It's like
and I feel like
you're gonna
there's so
give up
many.
writing about heroes.
Yeah,
That's the that's the like the most anti-hero thing.
yeah, and I
you know,
and I and I and I when I say what I should have said was like all these things that we lived through, right? Like 9/11. Uh, you know, I mean, in his case, the Vietnam War, um, war in Iraq, you know, and all these things,
yeah,
and you choose now to give up. It's like,
right. If anything, if that's if it's really as dire as you claim it is, this is the time to not give up. This is the time to
yeah,
how do you say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, so to speak, and double down and dig in. And right, it's time to live by Captain America's words of telling the world, no, you move. Right, the world's trying to get you to move. You plant your feet and you say, no, you move. Right, and that's what you need to do, Mr. Wade. If you really believe that Trump is the next Hitler or something, right? Then you got to fight. You don't give up. you don't you don't stop writing heroes. You write better heroes, right? So you can inspire people and encourage them to do what's right. If you really believe people are not doing what's right by voting for Trump, then you try to change hearts and minds, right? That's how you do it. It's just like on the right, right? That's what people did. They, look at all the people that surrounded Trump in this last election. Most of them are not hard right people. Most of them are libertarian. They were former Democrats, right? Former liberals, and many of them still liberals. Even Elon Musk was basically progressive, right? Joe Rogan, right?
yeah.
It's funny. I saw an article that said, we need a Joe Rogan for the left. And I thought you had a Joe Rogan for the left. It was Joe Rogan. Like you had a Joe Rogan. It was literally Joe Rogan. But you went so far left, right? You went so crazy. He had to put on the brakes and go, wait a minute, guys. you know, and I think that happened back in 2020 when they started lambasting him about him taking ivermectin and all that stuff. And they tried to paint him as some crazy kook, taking horse dewormer, and he's just
Huh?
weird. Yeah, like because he got COVID, so he said he did a video where he was like, I went to my doctor. The doctors, they tried everything. We just threw everything at it. So we did like vitamin C and all this kind of stuff. Then he mentioned ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Like he just mentioned all the drugs that had a reputation at that time for being effective against COVID. Right? It
Oh,
just so happens that I think it's ivermectin is also a horse dewormer, right? Meaning
oh,
it's a
okay.
popular drug used to deworm horses and animals.
Oh, I
But
see.
there's also a version for humans. It's literally the same thing. The dosage is just different for humans,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And we got to get it by prescription, all that kind of stuff. So that's what he took, and he went through his. And he literally said this in the video. He was like, "I went to my doctor, and he prescribed these things, and he listed those things, which included ivermectin." So it's not like he went to like some farmer outside of town
Right, right,
and
right,
and
right.
bought actual horse dewormer from a farm, or whatever. Went to a pet store, right? It's like he went to his doctor and he was under advisement of his physician, all that kind of stuff, and probably
Yeah.
the guy is wealthy enough. He probably has a nutritionist and all this kind of stuff. So of course he's not desperate to go try some, do something dumb like take some ridiculous amount of a drug that he has no idea. It's like no, he's like just telling you, hey, this is what my doctor said I did, so we did it, right? But the
Yeah.
news, just like they did with Trump, they took a little piece of what he said, right, and they just ran with it and said, "Oh, he's taking horse dewormer," and they literally said that. They said it on CNN. They said it on MSNBC. They
What?
literally said he was taking horse dewormer, even though he never said that. He said the proper pharmaceutical term, which is ivermectin, and he specifically stated he got it through his doctor, right? But they cut that part off, and so yeah, then they doctored the video. They made him look all like sickly, and pale. Like they decolorized it. It was crazy. Like,
Oh my. Okay.
listen, the mainstream news is garbage.
Well, I mean, yeah.
It's garbage.
I didn't mean to not
It's
to.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't mean to digress. It's just or go off the point. It's just before you mention the Joe Rogan thing, I thought of the author of Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yeah.
Tazuki Takahashi. I don't know if you know about this dad, but he passed away. But he passed away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did. I think someone posted
He
about it. So,
he saved somebody's life
yeah. Oh,
off the
really?
shore of Nago Okinawa. He was assisting. It was like the afternoon of July 4th,
Hmm.
and he was assisting in the rescue of three other people who were caught in a rip current off of Okinawa.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'll say to him, he's a badass dude. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like I
He, he,
wish,
he truly lived out his the values he wrote about.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's. I wish we had. I just I just wish we had writers with his conviction. You know. So
Yeah, and I think we do. I think there's a lot of writers, artists who are out there who do have those convictions and more. And Mark Waid is just one guy. And look, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's like, look, like I said, stop posting your emotions, man. give yourself like a month or two before you start. At least wait till inauguration. And you're calmed down, and you're not frustrated. I don't know, because it's like because it's just a bad look. It's like, yo, what are you talking about? It's
yeah,
just why, and it like there's been so many of these videos being shared of all these people claiming they're protesting and they're cutting their hair and they're talking about no sex for my husband and all this nonsense. It's like so much delusion. It's like it's hard to believe any of it's real, and I'm not sure if all of it is. I hope most of it is just people trolling, for it's clickbait and
I think it's real, but I think most people don't have the guts to do it.
well, many of them are doing it. They're cutting their hair and they're doing it right on
Cutting the
camera.
hair is one
But
thing.
I'm just
I don't know
saying,
about the second part.
yeah, yeah. But it's just I hope it is just trolls. But you know, it's like go out there and talk to real people. And while there are people who express a negative sentiment, they're not talking about cutting their hair, and, you know, you know, uh, uh, divorcing their husbands who voted for Trump, all this nonsense.
I'll
Yeah,
say this, and I've been saying it for the past year: is if you want change in America, if you think there's something wrong with it, you know, you don't fix a house by starting at. If you're fixing that, if there's something wrong with the house, you don't start you start at the foundation, and the foundation is us. So regardless of who's president, it's not going to matter if we don't change the current culture we live in, right?
yeah, that's right.
The, the president didn't teach me the preamble to the Constitution. You did, right?
That's right.
The Congress didn't legislate a law that made me learned that how to stealing and lying is wrong. My mom did,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So, so it's like I didn't, I didn't. I It's like there's only so much that voting and complaining to the government is going to do.
Well,
They,
not only that, but there's only so much that they ought
you
to do.
can't legislate morality.
Yeah,
Is
you
what I'm
can't.
getting at.
Morality is what drives legislation, not the other way around.
Yeah,
And so, if we have an immoral and depraved and demoralized country, then our government will reflect that, right? And so, in the opinion of a lot of people, like Mark Waid, that's what he sees. He thinks Trump is a reflection of that depravity. And look, I'll be honest. I think both candidates were. I think the government, as it stands right now, with save for a very small handful of politicians, is a reflection of the demoralization of this nation.
I
Um,
personally don't believe that our current government is a reflection of the people. Just from being able to, because I've lived in different states. I've traveled recently to different parts of the country, and for me personally, I feel as if uh, America is a lot better than what social media or the media in general makes it out to be. But that's for you guys
well,
to decide.
well, yeah, I agree. What I'm talking about though is the fact that there's so many people who have rested on relying on government to solve, like you just said, solve social and societal issues, right? Versus developing and nurturing culture at home within the family and then the broader community. And that's what I'm saying. That's not happening anymore. At least not on a broad scale, not on a national level, right?
Yeah,
We're very segmented culturally, and so the government is a reflection of that. It's a reflection of us sort of being asleep at the wheel and not really saying, "Hey, there's something wrong here," and it's been going on for a number of years.
yeah,
I mean, you go all the way back 100 years to the founding of the Federal Reserve and the implementation of the income tax, right? Just imagine, your government not just assessing a temporary tax to pay for some type of emergency like war, right? But saying from now on in perpetuity, everything you earn, we're going to get a percentage of it. It's ours. What is that? That's slavery. And yet the American people said, okay, I mean, there were a few that fought against it, that pushed against it, but ultimately we just rolled over and just took it. And we've been doing it for well over 100 years now, right? That's just one example. You understand? And over the time, we've just become more and more reliant on government to take care of us, not only on a federal level, but on a local level, as well as state level, local. And so it's so much so that if you talk to most people, we can't imagine a world without some type of government intervention. It's so ingrained in our lives. One thing, like living out here in LA, it's one thing I've noticed. When there's a holiday, like a Monday or something is off for Columbus
yeah.
Day, or I don't know, Veterans Day, right? This
Yeah.
past Veterans Day was a holiday. You know what happens? All the traffic and congestion disappears. You know what that tells me? That the vast majority of the operations in this city, in this county even, are government driven, whether it be actual government workers
Oh
and
yeah, because it's the
employees,
government taking the day
teachers.
off.
Right, exactly. Teachers, then there's obviously contractors and vendors, etc. Right? Because think about it, in the private sector, when I worked private sector, right, I didn't get Veterans Day off. I didn't get the day after Thanksgiving off or 4th of July if it landed on a weekday. I didn't get anything off.
Yeah.
I just came to work, and if I wanted the day off, I had to request it, and and usually I got paid for it because I had benefits. But you understand, like in the private sector, generally speaking, they don't take all the holidays off. They'll take the major stuff, right? Easter and all that kind of stuff, Christmas, etc. Right? But they don't take every like St. Patrick's Day or something, or even Veterans Day, like I said. Or so it's like it's kind of interesting to see, like most of society is pretty much like taking a break on these, and like I said, it just signals like yeah, because our economy, at least here, but that's probably true nationally, is largely driven by government activity, right? And that's unfortunate. That's scary, and it's not sustainable, right? Because it means in order to, because the government doesn't produce anything, right? So whatever they do, they have to take it from us to pay for it, right? So whatever we want from government, they have to first steal from us, and then they give us back a little bit, right? It's like going to a thief and begging them to for money. So they go, okay, and they go to your bank and they rob your bank, and then they come
Yeah.
back to you and say, here's some money, right? Here's a little bit of money, right?
Right.
And you're like, thanks. It's like, well, he just robbed you, right? He stole your money, and then he just gave you a little bit back, right? That's what the government is basically. So, and we beg for it, we fight over it, we debate about it, and it's all sophisticated and fancy. But at the end of the day, that's what's happening. We're literally just we're paying thieves to rob us, right? And that's how far we've fallen. And so that's my little soapbox rant. But that's why looking at this stuff from kind of a bird's eye view, it's so crazy. Get these people who are so, and that goes for both sides. It's for conservatives as well as liberals, etc. To be so emotionally invested to this point of threatening people and just being completely demoralized and defeated and deflated emotionally and psychologically. It's disturbing, right? Because it means you don't really see the big picture. You think you do because you've bought into a certain propaganda, but the big picture is not Donald Trump being Hitler. The big picture is not even Joe Biden or Kamala Harris being Hitler. The big picture is far worse than that.
Yeah.
'Cause it's the invisible hand of government, the bureaucrats, etc., that are doing their business, and that's what we really need to be concerned about. You know, and hopefully, you know, maybe that'll change. Maybe because there are
Well,
people who are becoming more hip to that reality. So you never know. We'll see.
we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
But let us know what you guys think about Mark Wade's comments. And
yeah, definitely give us your comments down below, like and share, and let us know what you think. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That's all we got. We just wanted to kind of rant a little bit and put in our 2 cents, right? So,
yeah,
but you
with
guys,
with, with the inflation,
yeah, thanks for joining us for Wondrous Wednesday, and make it a wonderful evening.
we'll see you around.